Hey y'all, it's Christy Cook from Teadoddles. Today for our tutorial Tuesday, I am going to go over how to read a crochet pattern. I've had some people ask about it in the comments and such, and it can be like a different language, and I know there's other videos about how to read them. But I thought I'd do one because you never know what might click with you. So, the pattern I am going to go over is one of my patterns. It is the Bumps and Scales cowl that I did last October. It is available on the blog, even the PDF to print out for free, because it was going to be my first published pattern for sale, but Hurricane Michael came through in October last year and kind of messed that whole thing up. So that didn't happen. So I decided to release it for free, even the downloadable PDF and chart that goes with it. Now, this one is similar to my Bumps and Scales shawl that will be coming out this October, but there are some differences in the size of the stitches, and I added an opening in that shawl. So it's a lot different. It has some similar stuff to this, but it is different. So anyway, I thought I'd print this out to go over it since it is my pattern, and I don't have to worry about copyright infringement or anything like that. Let's just start with the beginning. A lot of patterns come with a cover page like this with a title, and who made it, and usually a picture. And I accidentally printed this on my label paper. I forgot one was in the printer, but that's okay. And a lot of times they have notes up under them, which I'm sure y'all have seen before. Please do not copy, sell, or redistribute the pattern. Rather, link back to the original post. That's just a common courtesy thing. And it's, you know, if you promote the pattern as your own and it was somebody else, that is plagiarism. But anyway, I'm sure all of y'all know that. But I don't mind with any of my patterns if you use them to make gifts, charities, or sell what you make. I would just appreciate it if you let people know where the pattern came from. And most of them go into what supplies they use. I like to list what I actually use to make the pattern, and I try to let you know how much of that yarn I used. And I try to list all the things about the yarn to make it easier for you to decide what yarn to use when you pick out yarn for the pattern. And then it gives the crochet hook size. For this particular one, I did not do a gauge swatch because it's a cowl, and you can use a larger or smaller hook or yarn, and you just have a larger or smaller cowl. So a gauge wasn't super important on this. It's a corner to corner kind of thing, so it's pretty easy to make bigger if you feel the need to. So I print this on front and back to save paper, or rather label paper, since that's what I did. Anyway, so now this is the part that may confuse some people when we get to these abbreviations. There is a standard for the abbreviations. You can find it on I'll put a link down below. It's like the Crochet Guild or something like that, and I can't think of the name of it, which is pretty bad. But and usually they're not in any kind of coded message or anything like that. It's just an abbreviation. So CH means chain. It's just the first two letters of chain. TR means treble crochet. Now the TR's first two letters of TR of treble or triple. Some people call that a triple crochet. But I don't think I've ever seen it be TC, which is what you'll see other stitches be. This one doesn't have double crochet, but double crochet would be DC, as in double crochet. Single crochet is SC, single crochet, pretty easy to remember. Treble, they don't do TC, I don't know why, but it's usually seen as TR. And then slip stitches are usually seen as SL space LT, which is slip stitch. It's just the first two letters of the word. This particular pattern that I did look it up for crab stitch. That's only the edging for this pattern, so I didn't abbreviate it because I was using the CS for my crocodile stitch. And then I also have the puff stitch, which is PS. So the reason things are abbreviated in the patterns like this is to make it take up less space, because this is 5 or 6 pages long, and it's not a big pattern, but abbreviations like that make it go faster. So it's just abbreviations. That's all you're seeing in this written text down here is abbreviations for the stitches. And like I said, it's just used to save paper space for the most part. Plus, it's, of course, when I do patterns, I tend to, most of the time I go to the next row and just copy from the other rows and make adjustments. And that's what I tend to do because it's easier. But if you spelled out all those stitches, it would take up a way more space. Okay? And most of these people know how to do. Like the ones that just say it's a chain, treble crochet, slip stitch, that it just, there's no description of how to do it because it's a standard stitch that most people know how to do. Now when you come to special stitches that some people may not know about, crab stitch, more advanced or intermediate even crocheter may know what that means, and it's really just a reverse single crochet. You work it from the left to right instead of the right to left. Unless you're left-handed, then you would go from the right to left instead of the left to right. So it's just a backwards single crochet. That's all it is. And then I had these puff stitches, which represents the bumps and the bumps and scale part, as crocodile stitches represent the scale. And everybody does. You can do a puff stitch a bunch of different ways. The basic stitch is pretty standard, but it's all in the amount of loops that you pull up on the hook. So you have descriptions of your special stitches up here in the abbreviation. So then you can just put this abbreviation, which I have in bold letters, down here in my description instead of writing all this out each time you have to do that. And it's another way to save time and space when writing a pattern. Now for this puff stitch, it says YO, which means yarn over. Most of the time, these abbreviations are just the first two letters or the first letters of the words that it's abbreviating. So that just means yarn over, insert hook into stitch, and pull up a loop. A loop is what you pull up with the hook. When you pull it up, I am going to do some actual crochet as I read this when we get further down, so you can kind of relate it better to the stitches. So and then you see these asterisks sometimes, and you'll see, you know, at the end of this bit it says 3 loops on the hook, and then it says repeat from, I'm just going to call it a star so I don't have to say asterisk 100 times. Repeat star to star 9 more times. So that means I did it one time. Now I need to do everything between these 2 stars 9 more times. So I would repeat it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's usually, for this particular one, I had 21 loops on the hook. That's a pretty big puff stitch because I wanted to bump out a lot. So I didn't make it quite, I didn't need to do it quite so prominently in the shawl. So, and then it'll tell you how, I always tell you how many loops are on the hook. It's just easy to tell. For me personally, you may not see this in all patterns. It's easier to tell what, if you've done it correctly, because you can count the loops and say, did I miss something? And plus, I always like to say 9 more times instead of just 9 times, because sometimes that's not specific enough to me as to, do I do it 9 times total, or do I do it 9 more times? You know, it's just, I like to have that there to be more clear that I want you to do it 9 more times. You do it this time, and then you do it 9 more times. So then we have another yarn over and pull through all stitches, and then chain once, which is what CH means. So that's just for for the puff stitch, okay? And I'm going to go over it some more down here. I did do a video for this pattern for the different stitches within the, I think I did the first few rows, so you can see how to do the puff stitch and the crocodile stitch within the corner to corner. You can look for Bumps and Scales Cowl. It is on the blog, and it is, like I said, I did some tutorial videos about it when I did it, so I will put the links down below for all of that. And this crocodile stitch, you've got some abbreviations. I'm trying to make sure this is even in here. So you got TR, which stands for treble, comma CH, which stands for chain, 1, comma TR, which stands for treble. And anytime you see this, it's in the brackets, right? So that means I'm going to do a treble, then a chain 1, then another treble, and then it tells me that goes into the chain space. Okay, what that means is it goes into the chain space indicated down here in the pattern. Okay, so, and it says a V made. This makes what's called a V stitch. It has a treble, a chain, and then a treble, so it looks like a V. And then it says to chain 4. Most of the time when it has a comma, you do something, you do what's in the brackets first. It's kind of like algebra a little bit, I guess. You do what's in the brackets first, then you do the next thing, and the comma, and then the next thing, which is more brackets, and you go along like that as you're reading it. So anytime you see just TR, that would just indicate 1 treble stitch, right? Whereas down here you can see 2 DC or double crochet and 3 TR, which is trebles. And I realize I don't have the abbreviations on here for the double crochet at all, but I did use it in the pattern. So something I need to correct. But the 2 double crochet and 3 treble. So if you see a number in front of the abbreviation, that's how many you do. So in this bracket, you would do 2 double crochet and then 3 treble crochet into the second leg of the V, which I'm going to show you more about what that means. Like I said, I did do a video of how to do these stitches for this pattern, so I'm not going to be doing that. I'm just going to go over more about reading the pattern and show you how the stitches are done as you read the pattern. So now I'm going to go ahead, and this particular pattern does have a graph because it was corner to corner. It looks like this, and each symbol represents the puff stitch or the crocodile stitch. And I didn't, because this was for free, I didn't take as much time with the arrow direction. You kind of go across like this when you make this, so it's not as detailed as my shawl pattern will be. So let's just go ahead and start with this. So row 1, that means the first row of whatever you're doing, and they tell me to chain 7. That's what the CH7 means, so we'll do that first. Anytime I usually read till I get to a comma, and then I stop because I need to do everything before that comma before I continue on. Okay, just like in a sentence, you would take a pause. So I'm gonna make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chains. So I have 7 chains because that's what it said. It said chain 7, so I did. Now after the comma, it says to treble. It says TR, which is treble crochet, and 5th chain from hook, and in next 2 chain. And in parentheses they'll say 1 box made, and that means a corner to corner box. So I've got to do a treble and the 5th chain for hook from the hook. So that would mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would count to the 5th chain, which is that one right there, from my hook, and that's where I need to put my treble crochet. So I will do, I'm gonna count it again because we're going right there. I'm gonna insert that hook, pull it up, treble crochet is you're pulling through 2 loops 3 times, so one more than a double crochet. So I did it in the 5th chain from the hook, and now it says in the next 2 chains. So as you can see, there's 2 more chains here. So I'm going to do a treble. So that means that I need to do a treble in each of the next 2 chains. So I would do a treble in this chain, and then do a treble in this chain. Okay, so that means, and that's what it means by 1 box made, because it makes a little kind of little box, a little square for your corner to corner. Okay, so once you get done with that row, typically you're going to turn your working crochet, but you need to pay attention to where it tells you to turn in the pattern. So on row 2, it tells me to go ahead and chain 7. So that's what I'm going to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've chained 7. And there was a comma, so I stopped and did that before I moved on. Now it says turn, and there's another comma. So turn means you turn your work. So you go back the other way. So now I've turned. Now this is going to read just the same as that first part of row 1. It says a treble and 5th chain from hook. So again, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my 5th chain. And we're going to put a treble crochet right in there. All right, and in the next 2 chain. So there's 2 more chains right there. So that's where I need to put 2 more, a treble in each chain. There's 1. And there is the second one. Oops, split my yarn. There we go. Alright, so I did what it said. And now, so I'm to the next comma. So what does it say now? It says slip stitch into chain 4 of first box. And then there's a comma, so we're going to pause. So, slip stitch into the chain 4 of the first box. This was my first box, because in the first row it told me 1 box was made. So this is the chain 4 that I have, because remember I chained 7. I treble crocheted in the 5th chain from the hook and the next 2, but when I did that it pulled around 4 stitches, right? So I treble crocheted into 3 stitch chains, which left 4 on this side right here. So this is the box we're talking about. So you would slip stitch into it. And when I do a slip stitch, this is turned kind of wonky on its side. We'll turn it this way. I always go under 2 loops, right? Every chain has basically 3 loops. It's got the 2 on the outside and 1 that goes in between it. And I always go under those top 2 loops. And I'm going to pull it through here. That's what a slip stitch is. It's just slipping right on that loop. So I slip stitch into the chain 4 of the first box. Okay, that was my pause. Then it says to chain 4, right? And there's a comma, so I'm going to go ahead and chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it says 3 trebles into chain 4 of first box. So we slip stitch into that chain 4 into the first chain. So that leaves me three chains, right? So when it says 3 trebles into the chain 4 of that first box, that means you need a treble in each of the 3 stitches across there. Now, When I do this, I'll go around it and into it and then around it. It just is a little bit easier than trying to go between all those stitches, but I like to go between one to help anchor my stitches and keep it from sliding back and forth along this chain. So I'll do a treble around. Most time when you have a chain like this, it's fine to go around it instead of going through the stitches. It'll give you the same effect, but you see how that stitch slides? So when I do the second one, I am going to go into the stitch, just like that. That will keep, oh, my yarn's bunching up, there we go. That will keep it from sliding around a lot, okay? So then I got to do one more because I was supposed to do 3. So I'm going to go around this to do this one. Now, that's going to make my stitch stay together better, because this stitch slides, but it's in between these other 2 stitches, and this stitch is in between this and the end of the row. So that was the end of that row, and it says 2 boxes made. So if I look at my work, I got 1, 2 boxes made, right? So I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but basically when you read a crochet pattern, the best thing to do in the beginning is look at your abbreviations. Make sure you know what each stitch means and how to do each stitch if it's not explained in detail. That way, when you come across it in the pattern, you don't get held up. The next thing I usually do is, it's a good idea to read through the whole pattern in case, and if you see any tricky parts that you may think, what does this mean, that you may need to figure out or have more information about. I'm going to say I don't always do that. Sometimes I do. It depends on how long the pattern is. But it is a good idea to go through it and just kind of look at it and see if you notice anything that stands out that's like, what does this even mean? So that you can then look for it. And so I find it easier to do it before I start crocheting, because then when I get ready to crochet, I can sit and crochet and not be stopping to look things up, right? Which just interrupts the process and it can become frustrating. So that is what I suggest you do first. You look at this page, see the supplies used, pick out something similar to the supplies used, especially if you've never made the pattern before, because it could really change the overall effect of the pattern or the size of the pattern if you use something completely different. I'm not saying you have to use the exact same thing, but use something very similar to it the first time you make the pattern, unless you know for sure that you can use a different yarn and it come out okay. Make sure you got the right size crochet hook. If you find that when you start crocheting, if it has a gauge swatch, you should do that first. I know that's not something people like to do, but you should really do that first, especially if it's a garment, because you don't want to get mostly finished with it and realize it doesn't fit. Doing a gauge swatch just helps prevent that and lets you know, hey, do I need to change my hook size? Because everybody has a different tension when they crochet. So you need to do that if there's one provided. I didn't do one for this because it's a pretty, this cowl is pretty easy to adjust because it's a corner to corner. And like I said before, look through your abbreviations. A good pattern will have abbreviations. It will have information about any stitches that they did that are not common stitches. I'm going to put a link down below to a place where you can go to find the standard stitch definitions, okay? And when you're reading this pattern, if you have to in the beginning, go back to your abbreviations to make sure you understand what they're saying, okay? And most of the time, it can look like, it's just kind of shorthand. It's just a shorthand for the stitches, is all it is. So, when you see the CH and the chain, and like I said, do what it says before the comma. Comma is a pause indicator, meaning, you need to do this before you begin the next part of it. So do the chain and then the treble, and then we're done with that one. And then make sure you note where the turns are. Now I will say I've had patterns before that did not indicate where to turn at, or indicated to turn when I thought that doesn't make any sense. So that's something you may figure out as you go along. I try in my patterns to be as clear as I can, because I know how frustrating it is to get a pattern where you're like, I don't understand what this is telling me. And I've been crocheting for a good many years. I've been crocheting for almost 40 years. So, because I learned to crochet when I was 2 years old. I know that seems crazy, but I still come across patterns that I'm like, what are they trying to tell me? I don't understand. Even sometimes when I have pictures, I feel like I don't understand what they're telling me to do, which is why when I do pictures for my patterns, I try to point with little arrows to try to better explain where I'm telling you to put the stitches at, okay? You're not going to find that with everybody's pattern. I've come across patterns before that just didn't make any sense to me, but I have enough experience that most of the time I can figure it out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and admit, when I first learned how to do the crocodile stitch, even though they had some fairly clear pictures, I still did not understand what they were trying to tell me to do. It took me a couple tries to figure it out. And that happens. That happens to everybody when you're crocheting. And nobody does anything perfect the first time. Well, I mean, I can get a pattern sometimes and just go on with it and everything's fine, but sometimes I come across things that's like, I don't understand this. How do I figure this out? So if you're starting a new pattern and you see some stitches you're not familiar with, practice them. Practice them before you start doing the whole pattern. It's going to save you a lot of frustration. It's going to make you go so much smoother when you do the project. Doing that little bit of extra in the beginning saves so much time in the end and during the process. I know it seems like an extra step you don't want to have to do, but it really makes a difference when you're sitting and crocheting. It makes it more enjoyable because you took the time to read through the pattern, locate any issues you may have, test out new stitches, make sure your tension's correct. Ooh, lost my voice there for a minute, y'all. I had to give me some water. But anyway, like I said, preparation before you start something, especially if it's something new, always makes things go more smoothly. And I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all, there's been plenty of times I jumped into a project just thinking, I can do this, no problem. And then run into something down the road that's like, I don't know, understand what they're saying. So, it's just will save you lots of frustration. And I know that it's hard to get into the habit of doing that, but I've found through the years that if I go ahead and do that, look over the pattern, look at the stitches, make sure I understand everything it's saying before I begin, everything goes much smoother and I have more fun with the project. So I hope that helped people who are having a hard time reading patterns. I don't know what else I could really say. If there's something I missed that you'd really want to know more about, please let me know in the comments. And like I said, this pattern is available for free. The PDF the printable is free on my blog. We'll link all that down below. There's video instructions to go along with the special stitches. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Think about subscribing. And I think I'm going to let y'all go before I ramble on more, because I could probably talk about this all day. I hope y'all are having a great week, and I will see y'all for my review on Thursday. Bye.